Hi guys, it's Linda. Welcome to my channel. Today I have for you something a little different. My friend and I have decided to do a segment on my channel of true crime stories. So today we're going to bring you the story of the cult mom Lori Vallow and some of the things that have been going on with that. So stay tuned and we'll try to explain what's going on. Hi guys, it's Linda. Welcome to my channel. Today I am doing something new. So today I have my friend Vicky here and we're going to do some new segments, true crime segments. So Vicky, what do you think, what did you want us to call our little true crime segments?
Well, I like partners in crime.
Okay, so from this day forward we'll be partners in crime. Today we're going to talk about the Lori Vallow and all of that stuff that's going on. Her two children were found. They were found in her new husband's yard. They were buried in her yard. I know a lot of people, Vicky, that watch the channel might not know about this. We're really
Coming in,
yeah, we
thing.
watch everything about this, so we kind of know a lot about it. So we wanted to bring some of this information to people, or maybe we'll say something that's new and you're like, oh, I didn't hear that, because you get this information from everywhere. There's so many different places to find this information, so hopefully we can kind of put it together.
And what we're hoping is that whatever we're saying is factual. A lot of it is going to be our opinions of what's happening. Not necessarily what law enforcement has found. Or their lawyers are saying. But a quick overview is that Lori Vallow, back in 2019, has moved to multiple states with her children. There have been multiple people involved in her moves, all around her religious beliefs.
Right. They're in the LDS Church, which is the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church. That's the new name for the Mormon Church.
However, what their beliefs are not representative of the Mormon faith.
Correct.
They've kind of splintered off and formed their own group. And bizarre.
Yeah.
All I can say is, you know, it's very, very strange, and I don't believe any of it. I think it's all crazy. Basically, they believed that in multiple, what they call probations, which are reincarnations. They believe that, and a lot of people do, and I don't think that's so weird, but they also believe that there are dark spirits that take over your mortal soul.
They're called zombies.
Right, and they're called zombies.
Yes.
And their mission is to rid the world of zombies. And that's important to remember when it comes to her children.
Correct. Yeah.
So this started back in 2019 when she got involved with Chad Daybell.
Well, she did, let me correct you, she did get involved with Chad before that. So there is a timeline. So it was a couple of years. Chad, her new husband, Chad Daybell, where the children were found in his property, was actually an author. So he was, I guess, the head of this belief system, and he started bringing people in to his beliefs.
Right.
So he's like the prophet.
And she's like totally infatuated with him.
Correct.
And his books are all around doomsday prophecies. And that's another big part of it. So they are convinced that the world is going to end in July of 2020.
Correct.
Which is also important to remember when it comes in terms of the fate of her kids. So those are just some highlights of how it began.
Yeah, so I guess what we'll do is, because there's a lot to it, and any questions anyone has, please comment below, and we'll try to answer all the questions, because there's a lot going on, a lot of people, a lot of deaths involved with these people. So I guess to start out with, Lori is the center. She's where all of this started, because her son JJ, her adopted son, the way this all came to pass was his grandmother wanted to talk to him, and JJ, his name is JJ Vallow, he is autistic. So his grandmother and grandfather live in Tennessee, I believe, or somewhere south.
I'm not sure. But it's Kay and Larry
Woodcock. Yeah. And they, so they wanted to see JJ. They usually talk to him on a regular basis, but Lori would not have them see JJ, and they stopped communicating with her. So Kay asked for someone to go to Lori's premises to do a welfare check to make sure JJ was okay. At that point, the children were not there. And they said to the police officers that JJ was actually with his grandparents, which Lori didn't realize that's who called about the welfare check. So that's what started the ball rolling with all of this. If this call wasn't made, these kids probably would never have been found or went missing. So
the other part of the story is Lori's been married 5 times. The 4th husband, Charles Vallow, was killed, shot by Lori's brother.
Correct.
The brother is Alex Cox.
Correct.
Now, he has a whole history of his own that is another segment that we could talk about.
Correct. So where is Alex today, Vicki?
Alex is dead.
Yes, that's
Alex
another one.
Yeah, there's multiple deaths surrounding these two. They're questionable, and they're under investigation. And it all started with that welfare call.
Correct. Yep.
Charles, unfortunately, tried to warn the police, he tried to warn people around him that Lori was kind of getting unhinged. She was talking about him, Charles, being inhabited by another spirit.
Correct.
A dark spirit. And he was really frightened for the children. Police could only go so far with his word. They tried a couple of times, and it even came to the point where she was getting a mental health exam, which they said she was fine.
Passed.
She was fine.
You know, good liars can do that.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And anyway, poor Charles ended up dead. They believe he was set up by Lori and her brother. There was $1 million life insurance policy on Charles, and another fact is, she may have been after the money. That may be another part of it.
It's probably very good to assume that. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
right.
She did think she was getting that money, and turns out that his sister, Kay, actually got the life insurance.
Yeah, and that's another interesting story, because Lori and Charles adopted JJ.
Correct.
Kay's son was involved in drugs with his wife, and she also was involved with drugs. They weren't in any situation to keep JJ. So the grandparents, Larry and Kay, she identifies herself as his grandmother, even though she was Charles's sister. It's hard to keep track of this.
Yeah.
So what was I saying?
So about JJ was then adopted by Charles and Lori.
Correct.
And he is autistic, so he was 7 when he was found, when they did find him.
Right. He was a baby when they adopted him.
Correct, yeah.
So Lori had 2 other children.
Mm-hmm.
She has Colby, and she also had Tylee.
Right.
Tylee was from the third husband.
Yes.
Who also died.
Correct.
Of a heart attack.
And this was all before this all started. So Joe Ryan is his name. That's okay, I can stop it.
Yep.
Oh, you good? Okay. So Joe Ryan is Tylee's father's name. So Colby, I don't believe Lori was married to his father. She might have been, but she was married when she was young. I believe she was married then to Colby's father, and then she married Joe Ryan. So Colby was younger, then she married Joe, and then they had Tylee.
Joe Ryan did adopt Colby.
I believe so, yes, because Colby took on his last name.
As Ryan.
Yes.
Right.
And then, yes, they divorced before he died, I think. And then
that's right.
He died.
Right.
Obviously, he wasn't that old either. And then she married Charles and was married to Charles for a while.
Yeah.
And then winds up that she's going all crazy and everything, and her brother just happens to shoot him in self-defense, he says, and there are videos out there online showing Alex after he shoots him and the police come, and he's kind of just like,
oh well.
Yeah.
Oh well.
He said he was hit in the head with a bat, and he's just patting his head because it's a little, it has a little bloody, but Charles was actually a minor league baseball player, I believe, either minor or major league baseball player, and they said if he would have hit him with a bat, he would not be walking around. So, probably not what happened, but again, that's just our opinion. We don't know, and the police ruled it as self-defense because none of this other stuff came to pass until later.
Yeah, I think if you're going to murder somebody, that's a good place to do it. They were in Idaho at this point.
No, they were in.
They were
in
not.
Arizona.
They were in Arizona.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track of
it
this
is
stuff.
because they're everywhere and there's so many people
states,
involved.
Multiple deaths. It's just unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a shame. Just such a horrible shame how everything ended up. And I feel so sorry for the people that really, really cared for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And what they have to deal with now is just unbelievable.
Yeah, they're just not there anymore. And when you learn about how the kids were found, and just so you know, Chad has been, Lori has been in jail. She has been in jail for not producing the children and abandoning them. So that's why she's in jail. There's nothing, she's not in jail because the kids are dead. It was just because she abandoned the kids and would not tell anybody where they were. Chad was finally arrested because they did find the kids in the backyard. So Chad's wife. Chad was married to someone else, okay? Her name was Tammy.
Mm-hmm.
So Tammy was only 49 years old, and Chad said that she had a bad cough, and then she died in her sleep.
Yeah, guess what? She just mysteriously died in her sleep.
Correct.
So, again, she died. There was no autopsy done when she died.
Mm-mm.
So, come to light now, they've exhumed her body, and an autopsy is being performed. But she's been dead for a while now.
Yeah,
so
they're waiting for the results. So
it's been about 6 months that they're waiting for the results. So, I mean, there's a lot of information that law enforcement probably doesn't want to get out there.
I'm sure, yeah.
And the same thing with the kids. I mean, they're still doing autopsies on them. Nobody really knows the cause of death.
No, and it's hard because they've been there for a while. Tylee was last seen in September.
Early September.
And then JJ was last seen in late September.
Yeah, I believe it was September 23rd.
Okay.
Was the last time anybody saw him.
Okay.
And Tylee, I believe they took a trip to Yellowstone National Park, and that was September 2nd.
Yeah, it was early September. I don't have the exact
and,
date.
Alex was there. The brother, Alex, was there with them. And that was the last time. There's footage of them being in Yellowstone Park. So nobody knows really what happened after that.
But then after that, when they were home, because then Lori had moved to Rexford, Idaho to be with Chad. Oh, so here's another thing. Chad, his wife dies. 10 days later,
Him
and Lori go to Hawaii and they get married. So, but yet she purchased rings, her wedding band, before Tammy was even dead. So, and Chad's teachings, and he was telling this group around them that Lori and him were married in previous lives, and they are the head of the 144,000
Revelations.
And that, you know, his wife would die and her husband would die. Charles was supposed to die in a auto accident in Texas, and Tammy was also supposed to die in an auto accident.
They both died supposedly from embolisms.
Not Charles.
Not Charles, Alex.
Too many people to keep track of, and too many deaths. So
Could be later about that, but it's so absurd.
It is, and then there's other people involved in this as well. You have some of the people. A woman named Melody Gibb was also involved in these teachings, and she was really good friends with Lori. Winds up a lot of the information she gave the police, we believe, is what brought them
and there's interviews
into looking for the kids.
There's interviews online that she did with Nate Eaton. He's
from the East Idaho News. I love watching their stuff.
He's good. And also with Dateline.
Correct. That was just on.
She explained that the bottom line for her, when the other shoe dropped, was when they called her and asked her to be an alibi for them, for when the kids were missing. Now, the kids have been missing this before their deaths, starting with the search, the welfare search check, all the way for months. For months, until it was probably until their deaths. Until they were found.
Until they just found. Yes, until they just found them, yeah.
And when Lori and Chad were in Hawaii getting married and having a great time on the beach, and there's footage of this
that
as well.
Too. Yeah.
You can just see that they're just not caring at all.
No,
and they're saying that their kids, that her kids were safe. They were away somewhere and they were safe. For their own safety, they had to be hidden.
Yes. We now know where they were hidden, and they were not safe.
No, they were not safe, unfortunately. So
right now, they're both in prison. They did an autopsy on Tammy. We're waiting for those results. They did an autopsy on her brother Alex, but apparently he died from the embolism. They don't know if that... They say that's how he died. Who knows? Maybe he was just so... He really came to realize that what he did was wrong, and if he was the one that killed anyone. There were also people that were shot at, too. So Tammy, before she was killed, she was shot at in her driveway. So that's something. And then there's another Melanie, Lori's niece Melanie, who is also involved in this. And she was married to, her name is now Melanie, she's married to an Ian Pulowski.
Pulowski, correct.
And her name was Melanie Boudreau before that. So she was married to another guy, and they have 4 children, and then she started acting
She's a follower.
different.
She's definitely a follower of their beliefs.
But he was shot at as well. Her husband, Boudreau, what was his first name? Sorry, but Ian is her new husband.
I was going to say him, but that's the new husband.
Her previous husband, and she just left her kids. So she left her kids, said that her husband was doing all this stuff, left the kids with him, and now she wants to get them back, but yet all this stuff has been going on. So her ex-husband is trying to keep the kids from her, which is understandable because, first of all, you just leave them. So she meets Ian through
shortly after
10 days, and they got married.
Yeah.
So I believe she's pregnant now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So here you go. So then, and you want to not hate these people. If they have religious beliefs, you have to kind of look at, this is what I've been thinking, Vicki. They seem to have everything, okay? And I'll get to the money part because I want to bring up to speed with Lori and the money stuff going on. But if you seemingly have everything, which if you look at, Melanie Pulowski and Lori, they had beautiful homes, they had beautiful children, they seemed to have a beautiful life. Lori lived in Hawaii, they lived in Arizona, she wasn't wanting for anything, it seems. What turns you into the person that throws it all away, thinking that, what makes you that crazy about this religious beliefs that, like, obviously having everything doesn't fulfill you? That's what I keep thinking.
Well, obviously, but I think her involvement with Chad Daybell and his beliefs became her beliefs.
But do you think he made her think she was something important, and that's why?
He told her that she was a translated being, that she and he were to lead this group together of the 144,000.
Once the world ends, they will remain.
Right. So I just think she really went off the deep end. I think that it's more than just her relationship with him, but being so...
with her... Okay, speaking of the money. So her husband, Joe Ryan, died, so she has a young child, Tylee. Tylee is getting Social Security from her husband. Apparently, Lori doesn't work. Well, when everything happened with the kids, another reason why I think she didn't want to let on where the kids were, she's still collecting Social Security for these kids. Tylee from her father that died, so she's getting money for that. JJ, because he's autistic, so they're probably getting money for that. And then Charles dies, so she's getting money because his father dies. They were saying that she was getting $6,000 a month just in support for these kids. She didn't work. She lived in these nice places, like,
the house.
As a single mom without a job, I don't know how she's doing it other than getting all this money. She probably had life insurance from Joe as well. So I do believe a big part of Charles was the money, too. And then Tammy, Chad got money for Tammy.
And then they're throwing around words like they're serial killers. I guess if, 5 people are dead around you, you would be considered a serial killer. But it's just unbelievable how she just went. It just seemed Charles couldn't believe her husband before Chad. She changed, and how quickly that came about. And I don't even know if he was aware of her involvement with Chad Daybell at that point.
I don't think so. I do believe that they were having an affair before any of the spouses died.
Yeah.
I don't know. One thing that happened when, I think what nipped it in the bud, when Charles was on a trip for work, he came back and his truck was gone from the parking lot at the airport, so he had no way to get home. She took $35,000 because I believe he was a businessman. He owned his own business. $35,000 out of their joint account. He couldn't even pay his employees and stuff like that. Just took it and went off and went away somewhere. I don't know if she was with Tylee or where the kids were. There's so many things where she's running away here and there and leaving the kids.
Right. That's the multiple state things when she's just traveling from Hawaii to Arizona, back to Hawaii again, from back to Arizona, then to Rexburg, Idaho, to be near, to
ultimately to be with Chad. Yeah. But one thing I also want to point out is Chad has, I believe, 5 children and grandchildren. They are all perfectly well and good. There's nothing wrong with them. Nobody has attempted anything on them. So it kind of, not that I want anyone to be hurt or anything else, but what does that show? If you would think, Lori, why are your kids dead, but Chad's kids are?
Well, you know, he had this whole doctrine about who were light spirits and who were dark spirits. And a rating scale next to, say you are a dark spirit and you are a category 4. Well, you're in bad shape because they're, at that level, wanting to get rid of the zombie that's taken over your mortal soul. And I believe his children are, I mean, there's lists and lists. His children were still light.
Okay, so.
At that point. Lori's Tylee was a dark spirit, but they're saying she became a dark spirit when she became a difficult teenager. JJ was light and then all of a sudden became a dark spirit.
Yeah.
So, just crazy beliefs.
And I guess if you weren't part of that belief system, you kind of weren't going to be around anymore.
Well, and as far as Melanie Gibbs goes, she was very aware of his doctrines.
Correct.
And the light and the dark. And when I say she thought the other shoe dropped was when they asked her to be an alibi for where the kids were. They wanted her to say the kids were with her. And she said she
wasn't going to do that.
She felt deceived at that point.
Because why are you telling me to do this if the kids are fine?
Right. So she then went to the police.
Yes, I believe she went in November. I think she said in her interview that she went in November. So at this point, they did find the children. JJ, unfortunately, was in a grave. Chad had a fire pit. He has a pretty big, a number of acres in his
property.
And I think JJ was in. They have a pet cemetery. His wife had a pet cemetery because they would have a lot of pets. And she loved her animals, and when they would pass, they would put them in the pet cemetery. There was also bonfire, a fire pit there. So the curious thing was with the neighbors, Chad never really used the fire pit that much. And then just recently they saw a lot of activity. JJ was fine, although the other body that was found, which was Tylee, was charred. So they were probably trying to...
I think the word they used, it was egregious. Her body was an egregious.
Yeah, so...
It's horrible.
That was something that the neighbors noticed too. And just the fact that... I forget what I was going to say, but, just the fact that all these things were happening... and the way they actually found out where the kids were on the property was Alex's cell phone. So Alex Cox they looked at his cell phone and saw where he was, and he was at Chad's place. So he never really spent time there, and then all of a sudden he was there for a couple of hours one day, another time, you know.
Right. And they have
he was there.
The exact dates.
Correct.
They know the exact dates and times through the GPS on his cell phone, and pings. Apparently your cell phone pings off of certain cellular towers and locations, and they tracked it through that. I thought initially that maybe she rolled on.
Right, right. That's what some people were thinking, that maybe...
Because she wanted to get out of prison, and, you know, oh, by the way, they're both in there. Chad is in one prison on $1 million bail, and she's in another prison on $1 million bail.
Yeah.
So that bail amount for the desertion of her children is pretty significantly high. I mean, her lawyers were fighting that, you know, for that, and giving $1 million bail. So I kind of think that they knew that more was coming.
And she's a flight risk, so she has left. So I think a lot of that also was the fact that she could be a flight risk.
Right.
So they didn't want to chance that. And you're dealing with young children that are missing, so...
They both pleaded not guilty. And I'm just, where the heck are the murder charges? When are they going to come forward with this?
Yeah.
I don't understand what they're waiting for.
I guess they have to get all their ducks in a row. They keep talking. When you watch this, and we watch lawyers and whatnot and other investigators, they just want to make sure they get it right. So they need to have everything, and they can't like piecemeal it. They can't find something now and then add to it later. So they have to make sure if they're going to press charges for something specific.
I guess they've learned through, you know, Casey Anthony. Not that happened there.
Right.
But we all know the truth about what happened with Casey Anthony. But her lawyers got her off. And I want to they want to make sure.
Right, because reasonable doubt, they have to make sure there isn't any reasonable doubt, because that's why people will not be convicted.
Right.
So ultimately, you have to make sure your case is ironclad, that they can't get off. So,
my fear is with Lori that's going to be hard to prove.
Well, the thing about it is, and I've been listening to this, and people saying, yes, she might not have physically killed the children, but there's what's called murder for hire. So even if Alex did, and they made him do it, that would be considered a murder for hire situation.
Or conspiracy.
Yeah, so she could be held.
Right, in conspiracy.
Yes.
To commit murder.
There is a way for her to be involved in this, even if she physically didn't do anything about it, and Alex was the one that did.
Now, her family were staunch supporters of her. Her sister and her mother came out when the kids were missing.
And her niece, who was around the whole situation.
And said, if you knew Lori, she was a terrific mother. She would never do anything like this. Nobody, this Chad guy, could not convince her otherwise. And then it turned out that since the kids' remains have been found, that they've stepped back from that.
Right.
And they've said they're sorry. You know?
Oh, I didn't hear that. Okay.
Oh, yeah. The sister released a statement saying something basically like, okay, you want me to say it? I was wrong.
Right.
I
mean, you have to understand that sometimes when it becomes a family member, unless you have all the facts, you don't want to...
You don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's hard to admit, too, you know, that you have someone like that that could hurt your family, their own kids. That's not something that you want to admit to, but, you know, it's good that they did own up to it. I want to hear her niece, Melanie, because she's been a staunch supporter of her, too, and she actually was around the whole situation, so...
What's interesting is, when they were in Rexburg, they moved into an apartment complex. Lori was in one unit. Melanie, her niece, Melanie, was in another unit. And Alex was yet in another unit, all in the same complex.
Correct.
So it makes you suspicious of Melanie.
Oh, for sure.
Of what she might have known, and considering how tied to Lori she was, or is still, she had to know.
Yeah,
stuff.
her new husband did talk to the police.
He wore a wire,
or the FBI, yeah, because he was thinking, what the heck is going on here? Who did I marry? What is going on? But then he dialed that back when he did an interview with her. So,
well, I think he said they didn't find anything. That there was nothing that they could really say how involved she was or wasn't. With the wire that he was wearing. Yeah. So
you just don't
now
know.
that we've confused you all.
Yes. Leave comments so we can kind of
let us
clean it up for you.
And also, if you know anything more that we don't and would like to add to the discussion, please do.
Yes.
We don't want to get things factually wrong.
Right.
This is just our opinions. Some things we know through watching online footage and news reports of what we were giving, but you never know. So it would be great if you would leave comments and let us know.
Next time we'll keep notes. I should have gotten notes together, which I didn't, but and then if I can kind of try to put a timeline and just put like the people involved in this, I'll try to list that below in the description, just so you kind of know, have a sense of what's going on. And this is something that I don't know how you feel about it, but this I thought you did a great job, Vicki. And
I did.
Yes, we can do that. We'll do this more. There's going to be more coming out about this for sure, especially in July and August. I believe that's when they're going to go to trial.
Well, she is.
Okay.
His was delayed until August.
Okay, so his is August and hers is July.
I believe it's July 2nd.
And then once we find out about Tammy and her autopsy results, we'll do something with that. And then there are unfortunately, plenty of other true crime scenarios going out there. So we'll look into more of those. And you know, if you guys like this, we'll just keep it going. And thanks for watching. So leave comments so we can answer your questions and give us more feedback and let us know if there's anything we're missing so we can let everyone else know. And yeah, so
great.
Until next time, bye.
Bye-bye.